everybody kind of has goals in life, and they have, certain players want to win a U.S. Open or a Masters. For me personally, I've gotten the privilege to host a lot of seminars, and so I just want a major. So I'm very excited to have Mr. Harmon. It honestly was one of my goals in life to have someday get to ask him and have him present for everybody, because I honestly want to give back to others and promote learning. I was very fortunate to have a lot of mentors in my life, and this is my way of giving back to the PGA, is to try to put these things together, and I appreciate you all coming and supporting the event, the sponsors, everyone. So I'd like to have up Mr. Bill Hulbert and Mr. Butch Harmon.
My pleasure. Sean, I thought you were honored to have me up here, but that's okay. As you can see, this is a super senior portion of our program, maybe the super senior, but Butch Harmon, we are so excited to have you here in Southern California, an area where you certainly have a lot of ties. Brother Billy, who a lot of us in the room know, Tiger, Phil, Ricky, among others. So thank you so much for doing this. Let's go back to the beginning, though, back to New York. Your father was an icon. He was a world-class player who won the 48 Masters despite hitting 2 balls in the water in the final round. He was a world-class teacher and a world-class club professional. It's common for sons to sometimes pursue the footsteps of their father, but for all 4 brothers, all 4 Harmon boys, to go on to become icons in themselves and have stellar careers in golf is unusual. Was that strictly your father's influence, or love of the game, or a combination of any of the above?
I would say a combination of all. We admired Dad so much. It's really funny. Our dad was kind of hard on us, and we deserved it. People would always say, we were doing a deal years ago for the Golf Channel at Wingfoot in the grill room, and there was an old crusty member sitting at the bar. He was half wasted, and he came over, and we were in a period of timeout, and the 4 of us were sitting there talking. And he just came over and, I always thought your dad was really hard on you boys when you were younger. And Dickie spoke up. He goes, yeah, but look at us now. He must have done something right. Well, when you grew up in our family, when your fathers won the Masters, and all 4 of us were very good junior golfers when we were kids. Dad's theory was he would try and make you mad just to make you try harder. And I think if you look at how successful all 4 of us became, he was right all along. We were the ones that were messed up. He was the one that had it figured out, that we needed a kick in the butt and to get going. And I think that he would, if he's still alive, he'd be very proud of how his 4 boys turned out. And we all just wanted to be like him. I mean, he was the epitome of a golf pro. He was a great player, a great teacher, a great merchandiser, was one of the first pros in the world to understand putting a logo on your shirt at golf courses. He was a pro Wingfoot and Seminole. I get asked all the time. I had a guy say to me one time, he says, your father really was a good player. I said, oh, really, you think? I said, he won the Masters by 5 shots. I mean, he was pretty good. I said, but look at his record in the PGA. Semi-finalist 3 times, quarterfinalist 4 times. These are all top 5s and 4s at majors. And I said, he was a hell of a player. He said, well, why didn't he play the tour? I said, well, my mother had 10 pregnancies. We had 6 kids in our family. He had the 2 best jobs in the country. He had Wingfoot, he owned a pro shop. He had Seminole, he owned a pro shop. He was making more money than a leading money winner, so there was no need to go play. He would just play in major championships. And he was so funny the way he would needle us all the time about how bad we were. And it was always how bad we were. It was never how good you were, it was how bad you were. I'll tell you two quick stories on myself. When I was a kid, I had a little bit of a temper, and I was playing in a junior tournament one day, and got mad and broke my driver. And I know that the club pro had already called my dad and told him what a jerk his son made of himself that day. And so I get home that day, and Dad's sitting in his chair. He goes, "Hey, Butch, your boy, how'd you play today?" I said, "I haven't played very good, Dad. I shot 79. He goes, "I don't know why you get so mad. You never been any good." He said, "Now, your idol is Arnold Palmer. He could get mad. He's good." I said, "Well, you're probably right, Dad," but I just moved on out of the so I didn't take any more abuse. But the one I think that is funny, I just wish it hadn't happened on me. My rookie year on the tour in '69, I had missed about 4 cuts in a row, and in those days, only the top 60 money winners were exempt, so we were all rabbits and had to qualify on Monday. And I called my dad on Saturday morning. I said, "Dad, I landed LaGuardia at 12. I can be out of Winged Foot at 2 o'clock. You really got to help me. I'm playing terrible. I got to catch a flight tomorrow to go to Montreal to try and qualify Monday for the Canadian Open, and I'm just playing awful." And he goes, "Dad," he says, "I thought you were leading the tournament." I said, "Dad, I missed the cut." He goes, "Oh, hell, I must have had the paper upside down." He said, "Well, that's what we grew up with." And then for a while there, he nicknamed me a hot dog pro. He said, "Oh, here comes the hot dog pro. How's it going, Butchie boy?" I said, Dad, why do you call me a hot dog pro?" He says, "It's very simple. These 3 old guys are sitting behind the 14th green, and they got their programs there, and they look at it and say, 'Who's in the next group?' 'Oh, we got Harmon, we got Johnson, and we got Smith.' 'Oh, hell, they're no good. Let's go get a hot dog,'" he said. So this is what my brothers and I grew up with. And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to tell him where he could stick that green jacket, but I wasn't about to say it because I already had a right hook across the jaw and been on the floor. But his motivation was to try and get under your skin to make you work harder. Did that work with me? I'm the oldest and Billy the youngest. No, that's why we left home when we were 18. It worked real good with Craig and Dick. They were good ass kissers. They were the best ass kissers in the family, those two. But I think the reason we chose what we do is we admired our father so much. He was the consummate club professional. He was great with his members. He was great with running everything, whether it would be teaching, whether it would be the shop, whether it would be clinics that he would do. He was so far ahead of his time with teaching aids. He had an 8mm camera. He used to take film of great players. He had a mind and a vision that in those days nobody had. And I think we all grew up that way. I don't think any of the 4 boys, we really realized the education we were getting until we were maybe in our 30s and 40s. I mean, I with my own eyes at 81 years old, have seen just about every great player play golf. Not a film of it. I've seen it in person because I used to go when it started when I was about 7 or 8, 9, 10 years old to all the majors with my father. And so I've seen all the great players play. And I didn't think until I got older when I look back on it on how much I learned from watching great players. And for those of you young assistants here, and even some of your head pros, this is how you learn. You learn from watching. You learn from watching good players do things and how they swing. Even the record that I've had, which is I've been very fortunate to work with the best players in the world, I think I've learned as much from them as they've learned from me. And the one thing that sticks in my mind the most about our dad was he always made teaching so simple. I think today, first of all, less is more. The less you can say, the more your success you're going to have. And always have an open mind. Think outside the box. Don't get trapped in what I call being a one-trick pony because you've had success with one person doing something. You teach everybody you teach like that. That doesn't work. If I look around this room, we got 100 people in here and every one of them's different. You can't tell everyone in this room to do the same thing. I may tell you to do one thing and you to do another thing. I haven't totally lost my mind. It's just you have a different problem. The other thing I will tell you is that pick out a guy that's a successful instructor that's doing a seminar and you disagree with pretty much everything this guy says. Go to his seminar because you're going to leave there learning 1 or 2 things you didn't know. And those 1 or 2 things are going to make you better at your job. So always keep your eyes and ears open. Always listen. And we learned that from Dad. I can remember he was teaching a young guy from Australia who had 4 of his best weeks ever, and he went to another teacher. And I said to my dad, "Dad, I can't believe this guy went over there." He goes, "Why?" He says, "What's wrong with that?" He says, "Maybe he thought he learned as much as he could from me and went over there." And like I tell people who come to my golf academies all the time, it doesn't matter where it is in the world, I said, the best thing about coming here today is you can blame me for every bad shot you hit. And I said, look, I've taken 5 people to #1 in the world, and they all fire me, so you're not going to bother me if you. So think outside the box. Dare to be different. Don't necessarily follow the trend. Think of what you think's important. Learn about it. Keep your eyes open. Always try and learn. At my age, I'm still trying to learn. I never set out when I started teaching. I never started to be hugely successful. I didn't know what I was going to be. Heck, when I first started, I can't remember when I got home from Vietnam in '66 and I went to work for my dad at Wingfoot. And I'm giving lessons. I have no idea how to give a lesson. I mean, I'm just doing what I've heard my dad say, and I had to learn how to watch swings, watch the ball, watch the path of the club, all the various things. And then you learn, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And as we like to say, equipment has changed, as you know, as long as you've been a pro and as long as I've been a pro, equipment has changed how we teach. I mean, what I taught 10 years ago, I don't teach today. What I taught 20 years ago, I didn't teach 10 years ago. Now, I'm not giving any of the money back. I'm keeping the cash. But we move along in time. I mean, if you think about the old time players and you see film of them with a persimmon driver and a softball and a big reverse C trying to get the ball up in the air, well, you can't teach that way anymore. Guys wouldn't hit it any good anymore. You got to get more on top of the ball and drive through the ball and launch the ball at a different angle. So the way you talk about your instruction and your communication skills to your students, this is important. You have to communicate to them so they can understand what you're saying. And Dad was the best in the world at it, and we just wanted to be like him. He used to tell us a few more stories. He would always say, when he got older and he didn't play very good, we'd go out at night and he had the yips, so he'd putt one time, pick it up. Could still hit it pretty good. You know, he said, Dad, we're playing for $5. You got to putt out. Hey, pal, when I needed to make them, unlike you, I made them. Okay, don't worry about it. By the way, how many green jackets do you boys have? Let me make it easier for you. How many Masters you've ever played in? 0. How many times you ever been to Augusta when I didn't bring you? We go, okay, Dad, that's enough. Let's go on to the next hole. You can have the putt. Don't worry about it. But he was such a big person in our mind on who he was, and you know, it was nothing for us, as you and I were talking earlier, and we'll get to this in your presentation, to have Ben Hogan sitting in our living room having dinner and cooking steaks in the backyard and asking us boys to make a few swings. So we just wanted to be like our father. We really did. It's unusual that all 4 boys would go in the same profession. We've all been very successful. So I think it's a tribute to our dad, Claude Harmon.
Well, Butch, you answered all my questions, so I'm sorry, we're done. But to your point, the environment that you grew up in, the golf environment, and it strikes me that you were not only encouraged, but expected to ask questions and not be afraid to ask questions of people like Ben Hogan. So if you could, tell us about the first time you played with Mr. Hogan.
I think I was maybe 16 or 17. I just won the Met Juniors. I beat Mike Tenesh's son 8-7 in an 18-hole final. That was a fun-ass whooping, that one, I can tell you that. And my dad was playing with Mr. Hogan, a good friend of theirs named Corny Shields out of Meadowbrook in Long Island, and they asked me to come play, which I was like, oh man, this is unbelievable. I'm going to get to play with Mr. Hogan. And so we'd get up on the first hole, and there was a little dog leg to the right, and I was hitting a little fade, and I tee up my ball kind of on the right side of the tee, and above my visor, I was wearing Ben Hogan's shoes were like right here. I'm hitting the ball right here, and I mean, this SOB is standing right there. I'm like, oh my God, I flamed this thing so far out to the right. It was unbelievable. And I mean, don't think I've ever been that nervous in my life. And after about 4 holes, we're walking down the fairway, and Mr. Hogan comes up and he puts his arm around me. He says, Butch, just relax. It's just golf. I said, yeah, it is to you. It isn't to me. I'm playing with you. And I still have the scorecard. I shot 42-36. I nipped him on the back. I relaxed a little. But that was our upbringing as kids. We had the opportunity. Craig Wood and Tommy Armour were members at Wingfoot when we were kids. And I grew up as a caddy. I would be caddying, and I would caddy in Tommy Armour's group or Craig Wood's group and watch him play and listen to him and stuff. So that's kind of how we did it when we were kids. And like I said earlier, we didn't realize the education we were getting.
So did Mr. Hogan tell you the secret, or was there even a secret?
There was a secret of which he never put in the magazine. The actual secret, because he and my dad were best friends and they played together. Mr. Hogan, Before the accident was a big hooker. He hit a lot of hooks. And after the accident, when he came back, he decided he needed to get out of that. Well, if you go back, and I have a copy of the Life magazine way back in the 50s where he supposedly told you the secret. The secret was he wanted to get the club as weak at the top as he could. Instead of being this way, my father played from this way, he wanted to get the club this way so he could hit it as hard as he could with his right hand and it wouldn't go to the left. And so he never really told that. He told a whole bunch of other stuff, but that was pretty much it. Wanted to get the club face open so he could return the club with a right side powerful. And if you watch old films of Ben Hogan, until I saw young Tiger Woods at 17 when he first came to me, I'd never seen a body unwind that fast in my life as Ben Hogan's did. Well, if you think about how flat the swing was and where the club starts down from, a little under the plane, if you don't get your body out of the way, it's going all over the place. And boy, his body was so fast coming through there. And I can remember when I said, and you're going to ask me this in a while, and I'll elaborate a little more about that. First time I saw Tiger, I went, damn, he moves as fast as Hogan did.
So perfect segue into your dad and Bethlehem Steel.
Well, Dad played, my father had an unusual grip. He won the Florida State Amateur Championship when he was 15, not the junior, the State Amateur Championship. And he was playing on the beach with his buddies one day in Orlando, and he caught a football and it jammed his thumb. So he took his thumb off the shaft. So he used to grip the club like this, like a baseball bat, and he would interlock this way. This was his grip. This was off. This was wrapped in here like this. So he played from a very shut position. He'd get to the top, like you see a lot of the modern golfers today, and he was so strong, he could just put the club on the ball. And his theory was he could get here and he could just put this thing on the ball every time. That's why he was such a good ball striker. He used to say, see, boys, I got Bethlehem Steel here. You guys coming in with linguine down here. You're putting that linguine on it, he said. You better get some steel down there. He says, see, this and this are the same. You got your crap going everywhere, he'd say. As I said, we got verbally our ass kicked every day.
So are there occasions where that comes back to you when you're working with a student?
Oh, God, yes. I mean, that's impact. Yeah. That's impact position, if you think about it. And the modern golfers today, most of them play from a shut position because they're faders. And they're faders because the equipment allows you to be. The ball doesn't spin as much. Can you imagine if these young guys that hit 330, 340 yards tried to swing that hard with a persimmon head and a soft ball, they'd spin the thing right off the planet. But yeah, you look, I'd much rather see, if you're teaching someone, I'd rather see the club shut than open. Because if the club's open, they got to get there fast to get it square. If it's shut and you have any strength at all, you have to have a good rotation of your body. But you'll be able to hold the club face square at impact, which is all golf is getting the club square at impact.
But obviously, Mr. and Mrs. Haverkamp that can't rotate, so you're not going to...
I haven't given one of them a lesson in a long time. We used to say, Dad used to have a saying, and if you read the little pamphlet I had out there talking about my philosophy on teaching, first of all, it's an honor for you to give a lesson to your member. I mean, he's taken off from his work to come see you, and to be a professional, you have to be a professional during this whole lesson. For me, someone who taught all day long, the hardest lesson of the day to give is the one at 4 or 5 o'clock at night, because you've been teaching since 8 or 9 and you're tired and you want to come, and here comes your worst guy. And you'd give him 100 not to take the lesson. And that's the one, maybe more, depending on what you charge. That's the one you have to be a professional at, because you got to give him the same attention that you gave the guy in the morning as you do in that. And we learned that from Dad, that you treat every person you give a lesson to, you have to be professional, you have to present yourself professionally. Dad's theory is to always look at the swing and pick out what he used to call a cancer in the golf swing, the one thing in your student's thing that doesn't allow him to consistently hit good shots. And if you fix that one thing, you'll find that 3 or 4 of the little things just fall into place. And he would say, if you're given a 30-minute lesson, 45-minute lesson, hour lesson, you've got to fix that one thing and don't get off of it, because until you do, you're not going to help the person. You know, a lot of people, they try to fix 5 things to fix the fault. Well, identify the fault, identify the cancer, and get it out of there. And you'd be amazed how much better the guy will swing.
Your dad was a remarkable bunker player.
He was the best I've ever seen. He was Well, you think if you're I don't know how many of you have ever played a Winged Foot, ever played the Seminole, but if you're playing both of those courses, you better be able to hit bunker shots. High, soft shots. I mean, his wedge was low 60 degrees long before, when everything else was a 56. He was about 61 or 62 degrees, the wedge he had that he used, that had a lot of bounce on it, and he could really get it laid open and hit it straight up. I told you this story earlier, I'll tell it to you now. At the 59 Open, I was a freshman in high school, I think, and I just got off school. I ran out to Winged Foot and took my tie off, rolled my sleeves up. There's two pictures of me in that Hogan book, the Hogan Mystique book, of me standing there in the fairway with my dad or watching Mr. Hogan hit balls. But on the 7th hole in the West course, they were playing with Kerry Middlecoff in the practice round. And Middlecoff hit it in the right bunker. He never got out because it's a deep bunker with a pin only 15 feet away, and you couldn't even see the top of the pin. And I mean, he must have hit 6 shots in there, never got out. And I can remember I was standing up on the green with my father, and my dad said to Mr. Hogan, he says, "Ben, I got to help Doc. He's the worst bunker player I've ever seen." And Ben Hogan said, "Leave him alone, Claude. He may never learn. We won't have to worry about him this week."
So moving on with your story, after high school, where you actually excelled at halfback on a football team, which surprised me when I did my research. But
that was a long time ago.
Yeah. But you must have been a scrappy little tailback, I assume.
Well, I was fast and crazy, which was good. But at 5'8" and 160 pounds, I got my butt kicked a lot. But I said, God, it's legal to hit people. This is my kind of sport. I said, I'm gonna like this. I tried 1 year at junior college ball, and I got beat up pretty bad. I said, I better go back to golf. They don't hit you at golf.
So then after that, you spent a short amount of time at University of Houston, and then short. Yeah, 1 month. Yeah.
I went to Houston on a full golf scholarship, full ride, and I was there for 1 month, and I found out you had to go to class. No, me and class, we don't do. I didn't go to class in high school. I'm not about to go to class here. And I should have stayed in school. I wouldn't have ended up in Vietnam. That's for sure.
So you did enlist in the Army. You did serve in Vietnam. Thank you for your service. And after that, you came home, and golf was kind of calling your name again, right? Went to tour school, got your card in '68, and played 3 years on tour. Won a satellite event, and despite your father calling you the hot dog pro.
Yeah, the BC Open, I did. Those were fun days. There wasn't much money in those days. I think in my rookie year in '69, I think it was either Palmer or Casper was leading money winner, won $120,000, won 5 tournaments, $120,000. We couldn't believe you could win that much money. We as rabbits couldn't even make enough money to pay our expenses. We all had to have sponsors and stuff. So I always say I did a great thing for the tour in '71. I left it and got away from it. My deal was I had 2 children. My daughter Michael was born when I was in Vietnam. Unfortunately, my wife was pregnant when I got sent, and then my son Claude. And my goal was, until my oldest, my daughter Michael, was of school age, I would, if I played and I could make it and stuff, I'd stay there. If I didn't, I'd go back into club work and teaching. And I actually was a very good player, but I was so temperamental I couldn't get out of my own way. And I kept myself from being a good player, which, as it turned out, it's perfect, because I ended up right where I should be in doing what I should be. But that's kind of the story on that. I like it when you said I went to University of Houston for a short time. We were talking the other day with some friends. They said, well, what classes did you take? I said, I don't know. I only went to one, then I never went to another one. I went to the range or the bar. That was not a good combination either, by the way.
Your dad has so many great quotes. One of my favorites, and I'm guessing this may have some application here: showing your temper is like showing your rear end. Everybody will look, but nobody really wants to see it.
You got that right. I was good at showing it.
So then,
all right, go ahead. Tell the story about the breaking all the clubs, just so you can get that out.
I'll let you tell that.
There's a story that, if you read my book, The Pro and stuff, I talk about it. And when I was at the University of Houston,
right here, everybody should read this.
I got a little mad, and I broke a couple clubs and threw the heads in a lake. And my dad embellished the story so much to say that it was the set of clubs that he finished 2 shots off the lead with in the Open at 59 at Winged Foot, and that I should have gone in the Navy instead of the Army, so I could go back down in the lake and get his clubs back. And it wasn't a whole set, but as we got older, there was more clubs that I broke than really happened. But what you'll find with Harmons, and those of you who've listened to my brother Billy talk, who's absolutely hilarious. Dickie's unfortunately no longer with us, and Craig. If bullshit were dynamite, we'd be atomic bombs, because we got a lot of BS. we never let the facts get in the way of a good story. That's a Harmon trait.
So, in the interim, through your dad, you became the personal instructor to the King of Morocco for 5 years. For 10 years. You lived in Morocco for 5 years. Yeah. Ultimately came back to the U.S. and became the club pro at Crown Valley Golf Club in Iowa, where you met your wife, Christy.
We met Crow Valley Country Club. Yeah, King Hassan II was a wonderful guy. I had played in a Moroccan Open in 1969. Julius Boros and I went over and played. My father was originally trying to teach the King how to play golf. He was a ranked beginner. And being the oldest in a family and their culture, you're kind of the heir to everything. So I got invited to play, and I played very well, finished second in the event. And we were asked to stay over and play golf with His Majesty. Well, he had this little course between Rabat and Casablanca. He built this beautiful palace on the sea, and he had a 9-hole golf course there. And it was a short course, but it was perfect for him. And so we go, and I'd never met him before. And it's a very strange thing. This is a real king now. This isn't like the King and Queen of England. If he says your head comes off, there's no trial. I mean, he's the king. He's the man. He owns the whole damn country. And so we were out there, and he's not playing very good. First hole's like 300 yards long. Boros and I drove it right on the downhill on the edge of the green. He made like 7 or 8. Second hole, little par 3, 130 yards. He made like 7. We get on the third hole, what they call a par 5 in those days, probably 490. And he hit 4 pretty good shots. He got in this bunker, and he couldn't get out. I mean, he must have hit 5 or 6 times in a bunker. Well, those of you who have any age on you know that Julius Boros is one of the best bunker players of all time. I said, Jay, you got to get in there and help him. It wasn't going to be me going in there. I said, you got to get in there and help him. So he goes in and gives him a lesson. Didn't think anything of it. He never did get out. So we go to the next tee, and we play the 9 holes. And we finish the 9 holes. And as they call them, the concubines or wives or I don't know, whatever they were. There was about 40 of them walking around. You said, now you're not allowed to look at the women. Well, how the hell can you miss them? It looks like a gallery out here. I mean, and they all go back into the palace, and we're getting ready to leave. And Jay's chauffeur comes up, and my chauffeur comes up in the car. And the guy comes running out of the palace. He says, Mr. Harmon, His Majesty would like to know if you could stay over for 3 or 4 days and help him with his golf game. And this is how naive I was. I said, well, I sure can, but do you think you could help make sure you could get me a different ticket on Royal Air Morocco? Well, he owns the damn airlines. He owns the whole country. Of course they can get that, Butch, you idiot. So I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So we come out the next day, just me, and I said, do you want Mr. Boros? He goes, no, he has to go to France to do something. I said, okay. So I stayed, and we go out and hit balls the next day, and all I was trying to do was get him to get the club on the ball. Just making 3/4 swings, a lot of practice swings, just let the ball get in the way and stuff. And he hit a pretty good drive off the first hole, probably went about 190 yards, which was good for him. He wasn't a very big guy. And he actually made a 6 on the first hole, wasn't bad. And a little par 3 up the hill, he actually made a 5. So he's double bogeyed the first 2 holes, pretty good for a beginner. We get to this par 5, and he hit 4 really nice shots, 3 good ones, and pitched it on the green. And I was leaning on my putter. And I was looking over to the left going, wasn't there a bunker there yesterday? and I'm looking at this, and the king looks at me and went, very bad lesson. I didn't want any remembrance of it. I mean, this was yesterday this bunker was here. I mean, this baby's not gone. It's sodded, and it's perfect. I'm like, wow, this is a strange situation. And so at the time they were building Royal Golf Dar es Salaam in Rabat, which is a 45-hole complex built for tourism in Morocco, and the Champions Tour now plays an event there. European Tour played an event there. We used to have an event there when I was the first director of golf there, and they showed it to me under construction. They said, when this is finished, the king would like to have you come and be the first golf pro. I said, well, I've already realized the bunker's gone. I'm not going to tell him no. Oh, I'd be more than delighted to. No problem. So fast forward 3 years. I've played 3 years on the tour, not really making that much money. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do, and I get this call from the embassy in DC, and they say, okay, the course is ready. We're ready for you to move over here. So both my kids at that time were very young and very little, and we just jumped on a plane and moved to North Africa. And I lived there full time for 5 years, and then spent the next 5 years my winters there. So it was an amazing experience. I did go through 3 coup attempts, were not too amazing. And I can remember saying, God, I got through the war in Vietnam. Now I'm going to get killed on a golf course. What the hell's going on there? And I said, I'm making all this money, but I got to be alive to spend it. So I decided maybe I better, after 10 years, I think I'd move on.
And your destiny as a teacher and a coach took a significant turn when you were in Houston. You got a call from Earl Woods. Tiger had won 3 consecutive U.S. junior amateurs, but he had failed to qualify in the first U.S. amateur. And tell us about that get together and the first time you saw Tiger.
That wasn't the first thing. I had already taken Greg Norman to #1 in the world. That was the first one that I did. No, that's okay. I'll help you out. I remember those wins. And that happened because of Steve Elkington, who was the first really tour pro I ever had any success with, introduced me to Greg, and that's how that happened. But Earl called me and said that his son had just lost to champions in the first, I think it was the 3rd round. I wanted to know if he could come over to Lochinvar, the club where I was director of golf at. And I said, yeah, I've heard of him, but I've never seen him play. So he came over. I think he's 16 or 17 years old. And we go out to hit balls, and I still have the film. Any of you who've ever been to my academy, it's still in our computers. Tall, skinny kid, just hit the ball a mile. I mean, it just went forever back in those days. And you could see the raw natural talent that he had. And I can remember saying to him at one time, I said, Tiger, every good player has an automatic shot they hit. When they're coming down the stretch in a tournament and they have to drive the ball in the fairway, they may tee it a little lower and hit a little cut out there or trap a draw out there. What is your automatic shot? He said, I don't have one. I just hit it as far as I can and go find it. And I hit it again. And I'm thinking, well, that's a cocky little SOB. But he wasn't lying. That's how he played golf. And the talent was amazing. The natural God-given talent was unbelievable how good it was. And I can remember that he was there for 2 days and he went back to California. I got a call from Earl about a week later, and he wanted to know if I would take his son under my wing and become his coach. And I said, well, Mr. Woods, I'd be happy to do that, but it's not going to do any good if I tell him to do something and you disagree with it, and you want him to do this. And I said, he's your son, and I understand that. If that's not going to work for you, that's fine with me. And he goes, no, I'll make a deal with you. You don't try and be his dad, I won't try and be his coach. And that's kind of how we did it. And Earl didn't have the greatest reputation. He, if you think about Earl's upbringing, he was the first black athlete at Kansas State. He was a catcher on the baseball team. So I'm sure he took a lot of abuse way back in those days. And so people say, how did you and Earl Woods get along so well? I said, we were both combat Vietnam veterans, and we had this bond from what we had been through in the jungle. And this is a bond that you never forget. Those of you who are veterans understand what I'm talking about. It's a bond you never forget. This is the people you relied on and stuff. And that was how we got along. And I got along fine with Earl. I didn't have a problem with him. He stayed out of the way from the way I thought. And we had a great relationship. And Tiger and I had a great 10 years. It was as good as it could get, really.
Yeah, very great 10 years. So he went on to win 3 consecutive U.S. AMs. He turned pro. He won early as a pro. And then he won the 97 Masters, where he won by 12 shots, which in and of itself is remarkable. But from there, after that Masters, he wanted to retool his swing.
Well, what we talked about, one thing about Tiger Woods, he probably, of all the people that I've had success with, was a great student of the game. He studied the game. He studied the players that came before him, the all-time greats. He would ask me hundreds of questions about my father and Ben Hogan and Sam Snead. He always wanted to know. He always wanted to learn. And so I said to him, I used to call him Tiggy. I said, Tig, we got to get this club. It's a little across the line. The club face is a little shut. It still gets a little stuck behind you. We've got to work on that to get that out of there so you don't have to catch up all the time at the bottom, which he had great hand-eye coordination. And I said, it's going to take a while, so let's just do it in pieces. He goes, no, I want to do it all right now. I said, well, you got to play in 98. I don't care. Let's do it all right now. We won 1 tournament in 1998. Then came 99, 2000, 01, 02, and so on, where he just won everything. So this is something you can tell your students at your club. If you're giving them a half-hour lesson or an hour lesson, whatever however y'all teach, and you work with them and they go out and have a bad day, they just throw it out. Well, that didn't work. Well, first of all, you have to explain to them that you will regress a little before you go forward. And second of all, you can tell them the Tiger Woods story, because he's one of the greatest players that's ever played golf, and took a whole year to feel comfortable with. And we got an 18 handicap telling him it didn't work because he tried it, for 9 holes, and he said, "No, you don't know what you're talking about. That didn't work." So golf's hard. Golf's not easy, and you know that. Y'all play golf, you teach golf, and some people we teach are easy to teach, and other people are not easy to teach. But you can use that kind of story when you're given some, because change is difficult. It's difficult to change a golf swing. Dad had a great line for those of us when we were young pros. He says, if you ever want to feel what one of your students is going through when you're not seeing you're getting to them, go teach yourself to hit a ball left-handed. See if you can hit it. And I can't hardly chip out left-handed. Now, my son Claude can play either way, lefty or righty. He's got 2 sets of clubs. If he's playing bad right-handed, he just goes to the left-handed set. And I've got no chance making a left-handed swing. But I tried it. And I said, yeah, it gives me a better understanding what people are trying to do when I'm trying to explain to them, you need to do this, you need to do that. You've now got a better understanding of why they can't do it, because you can't do it either when you're trying to make yourself swing left-handed. So it's not easy. We have to be supportive during the whole thing. You have to be upbeat. Always be positive. Never be negative. And the one word I will tell you to never use when you are teaching, never say to one of your students, I think if you do this, you're going to get better. You think I'm paying you. Don't tell me you think I might get better. Always be positive. Say, okay, this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is why I'm having you do what we do. These are the pros and cons from it. And as we do this, and if you use video, which we all do now, you can show it to them, the before and after. And I always like to film practice swings. Film the students' practice swing, because they can physically do anything when there's no ball there. They can make this beautiful flowing swing and everything and film it. And then show them on the film when they make their normal swing the difference. And the practice swing is what I'm trying to get you to do. This is what you're still doing. And you just, as I said earlier, you pick out the cancer in the swing and you just hone in on it and get it where they're better. People say to me, how did you become such a good teacher? And I said, I don't know. I just tried to, when I went in this profession, I never thought I would achieve what I achieved. I always just tried to be the best I could be. I always tried to, like I said to you earlier, I'm not a one-trick pony. I have an open mind. I see things differently than some people do. My dad had the greatest eye I've ever seen. He could see things. I can see a golf swing, and I can see about 40 things happening in a golf swing. I'm looking at grip posture, path of the club, plane of the arms, the hands, the golf club, and everything. And all of a sudden, that cancer just leaps at me. I just see it. I can't tell you why. I'm just very fortunate that I have that ability to see it. My wife says I'm a nightmare to go to the movies with because I find everything wrong in this scene. I said, can you believe that? That green car's been by 3 times now. One this way, one that. Would you shut up? I'm trying to watch the doggone movie. Honey, look at his tie. In that scene, it was over here. Now it's back over here. Don't the people check this stuff out? She goes, this isn't a golf lesson, damn it. Would you quit looking at it that way? But that's the way you have to be. You have to be observant. You have to see. And I think in this day and age, because of technology, and I'm not anti-technology because I use everything we can use, but I don't think it's the end all. I think we were taught, obviously with no cameras or anything, you were taught off the ball, where the ball started, the spin on the ball, the shape of the shot, the trajectory of the shot, pretty much tells you the path of the club and the club face angle at impact. You can see that. The ball just shows you that. I watch a lot of young professionals today that have gotten too enamored with technology, and they never watch the guy swing and they never watch the ball. And they'll give you the numbers where you're 4 degrees down, 3 from the inside. Well, tell them what they're doing wrong. What is causing all that? That information is great if you know how to use it, but don't make it the end all. As we heard in the presentation before, I use the machine that he was talking about. I think that's the best one. I use it more when good players, when they're changing equipment, going from a different manufacturer to a different ball, especially with drivers and ball and shaft combinations, so I can show them the numbers and show them the things they're doing and why it's doing that. And we do use it in teaching with decent players. With an 18-20 handicap, they're not going to understand a damn word about that. They're not going to understand all these numbers and these angles and stuff. And I have everybody, my friends, all convinced that I don't understand it. I say, smash factor, I don't know what the hell that is. Are you talking about being in a fight or what? I don't know what a smash factor is. Of course I do. I told a seminar I did a few years ago. I said, Mr. Harmon, we know you're older and you're old school and you don't believe in technology. I said, that's not true. We use technology at every academy I have all over the world. We use everything. Knowledge is great. I said, matter of fact, when I teach, I use 2 launch monitors. They go, oh, yeah, what kind are these 2 blue ones right here? I said, those are my launch monitors. But don't quit using technology, just don't make it everything. It's not the total thing about it. You still have to see what you see. You still have to be able to deliver the message. You can tell them, yeah, the club is too much from the inside, so many degrees. Tell them why. Explain to them why. Explain to them how you're going to get them out of it.
Okay, there goes another 5 questions.
That's all right. I told you I was an atomic bomb.
No,
we can be here a while.
no, that's awesome. That's exactly why we appreciate you being here. But before we get off Tiger, I just want to say that, after the retool, he had 8 wins in '99, 9 wins in 2000. He won the 2001 Masters to complete the Tiger Slam. So one of the greatest stretches of golf ever.
It's the best I've ever seen, to be honest with you. I've never seen, I get asked all the time, who is better, Jack or Tiger? And I always have the same answer. Jack Nicklaus is the greatest champion that the game's ever seen. Nobody even close. Yeah, 18 majors is phenomenal. How about 14 seconds, 15 thirds? He could have won 35 majors. That means in a period of about 20 years, every major he played in, he had a chance to win. So he's the greatest champion of ever. I've never seen anybody play golf like Tiger Woods did in that stretch. Winning the U.S. Open by 15 shots, winning at St. Andrews the next month by 8 shots and never hitting the ball in a bunker. You can drive the ball right down the middle of the fairway at St. Andrews, you get a bad bounce, it's going to go in a bunker. 72 holes, he never hit a ball in the bunker. This man had control of his golf ball through the air, and that's the secret to playing golf. How do you control the ball through the air? As good as anybody that's played in modern time. Hogan, to me, was the best ball striker I've ever seen. Probably Trevino would be the second best ball striker, and then I'd put Tiger in the third. The difference between, if there is a difference between Tiger and Jack, it was in the mentality of how they played. If Jack had the lead in a major, say by 2 shots going to Sunday, he knew if he made 18 pars, he would probably win. And if someone came and pushed him a little, he'd stop trying to hit it in the middle of the green, and then he'd start shooting at some pins and make some birdies, he'd win. Tiger doesn't want to beat you, he wants to kill your whole family. I mean, he wants to beat you by 5 or 10 or 15. If you remember when he won the Open, the Pebble, by 15 shots, he was the only one under par. Well, you probably didn't even realize this. On the 16th hole, Tiger had about a 15-footer for a par. Now, he's leading by 15, and he made this 15-footer, and he gave it this biggest fist pump like it was to win the tournament. And people say to me all the time, what was that all about? I said, when he teed off, when we were on the range that afternoon, he says, I'm not making a bogey. I'm not going to make a bogey today. I don't give a damn how much lead I got. I am not making a bogey. And he was still thinking that when he had a 15-shot lead, when he holed his putt. This to me was the difference between the two. He had this mentality that he just wanted to wax you. He didn't care what it was. He had a saying that we never told the press. He would just tell Stevie and I, and this will tell you his mentality on why he was so good. He said, I know that they know that I know they can't beat me. And he says, and I use that. And he could get in people's head because he was so good. You think about tournaments that he won. He's always coming up the leaderboard. And the guy who's leading the tournament is that, oh my God, here he comes. And then all of a sudden they start making bogeys and he's making birdies and he won. But his whole thing was winning. That's all he cared about. Most important thing in his life was winning.
His short game was phenomenal. You've been around your father, Phil, Tiger, Jose Maria, Seve, some people that all obviously have unbelievable skills. How much of that is innate and how much of it is learned, and are there commonalities among all of them?
In his case, it was more learned. He was not a good wedge player. He couldn't spin the ball at all with 30 and 40 and 50-yard shots. And when he was a teenager and playing in these major championships because he was winning the amateur, I would always have him play practice round with Seve or with Greg or with Raymond Floyd or with Jose Maria. And I'd always say, ask him any questions you want. And he would just pick their brains. Because as I said to you earlier, he always wanted to learn. He always wanted to learn. And he made himself into a good player. I think I have learned as much from every great player that I've ever worked with as they've learned from me. Because I got to watch how they do it and ask them, why do you hit this shot like this? Pretty much what I taught Tiger, I learned from Seve, Jose Maria, and Greg Norman, because their short games were phenomenal. And all three of them did it a little different. And then he has to put his own take on it. But he would just wear them out with questions because he wanted to know. The only way I'm going to get better is to get my short game better. And he was like a sponge. He would just soak up information. And that's what's made him such a joy to work with, is he always wanted to get better. He was never satisfied. If he won by 5, he should have won by 10. You know, for me, winning is winning. Winning by 1 is fine with me. You know how hard it is to win on the PGA Tour, as good as these guys are today. It's what made Scottie Scheffler's year this year so phenomenal, what he did, all the tournaments he won. I do TV in Europe for Sky Sports, and I've done it for 28 years. I just do the Masters now that I've gotten older, but I used to do all the majors, all the big events. And we were having our build up to the Masters this year, and it was all Scottie Scheffler because he had been playing so well. And our presenter said to me, he says, you know, this is starting to look like this guy's Tiger S. And he looked at me and I kind of paused for a moment. I said, yeah, if he can do it for 20 years in a row, it will be Tiger S, because that's what this kid did. He did it for 20 straight years, which is unheard of, really. And today, number one's almost by a committee. You know, one guy will have it for a while, then the other guy comes. And we've got so many good young players today. It's beyond belief. And a lot of you in here work with some of those. Golf's in a great place as far as the game goes.
Your father was a great influence on you. You talked a little bit about, you know, developing yourself as a teacher. John Jacobs, who some people in this room may not even know who that is, was also a great influence on you. Practical Golf, if you haven't read this book, please read this book.
I think it's the best instructional book ever written. I have one that was written in the 70s, actually, that's got so many yellow highlighters in it, and everybody that comes to work for me, I make them read it. And then I said, okay, you're going to read this book from cover to cover, and you better remember, because I'm going to start asking you questions about this. And Mr. Jacobs was a great believer in path and club face angle. And like my dad, he had the greatest way of explaining it to you. As he would say, you need to learn to teach golf at a second grade level, so a second grader can understand what you're talking about. And this book is phenomenal. If you don't have it, you should get it. You can find it online. It's called Practical Golf, John Jacobs. I'm going to tell you what, and I told you this when we were talking earlier, what a great influence he had on my life. When he died, I was asked to go to Winchester Cathedral in England and speak at his memorial service. And it's one of the greatest honors I've ever had in my life, to have the opportunity to get up in that pulpit in this cathedral that's been there forever with all these people there and talk about how much John meant to me. I won an award from the European Golf Writers Association, long time, Muirfield. And John's health was poor then, and he literally had somebody drive him all the way from England to Scotland to present me the award. And so we had a bond that was actually beautiful. He was one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever seen. If you go online and listen to some of John Jacobs' teaching stuff, his delivery was so simple and he was so articulate with the English language, and he had such a beautiful way of saying it. I'll guarantee you guys will learn, and you ladies will learn if you'll listen to something like that.
So, teaching versus coaching, talk about what you think has made you so good with the elite player over the years.
Well, first of all, as a teacher, you got two choices. You can teach golf to people or people to play golf. We Harmons, we think we're going to teach you to play golf. We're not going to teach you a golf swing. We're going to teach you how to play. I think the fact that I actually played the tour and was a pretty good player, I've played in major championships before when I was younger, I have a little bit of understanding of what my guys are going through. I mean, never played at the level they have, but I get what's going on in their head. And for those of us, and there's some of you in this room here that teach great players, you've got to be almost a sports psychologist. You got to know when to kick them in the butt. You got to know when to give them a hug. You got to know when to make them laugh. You got to know when to back off and give them some space. And each one of them is different. I may treat one way and another way. I'll tell you an interesting Ricky Fowler story. In 2013, the Open that Phil won, which was, I think, the best Phil's ever played, the one I worked with him anyway. And he had played a practice round with Phil. He was just playing awful. And I didn't work with Ricky at the time. I knew Ricky. He was a wonderful young man. And he missed the cut by a mile. And he called me in the hotel room that Friday night. And he says, hey, Butch, is there any chance after you get your players to tee off that you could come and watch me hit some balls. I'm really struggling. I said, sure, I'd be more than happy to. So I did. Everybody got teed off. It was like 3 in the afternoon. We went on the range, and Ricky's there by himself, and he's hitting balls, and I'm explaining to him what he needs to do. And then about this time, people see Ricky Fowler at 200 or 300 people there. Well, if you remember Ricky's old swing when he got out of Okie State, he was one that got the club way outside of his hands this way and had this tremendous lash to drop it underneath and had great hand-eye coordination. And he was just out of sync. I mean, he had gotten this club so far this way that there was no way to get out of it. And he dropped it under the plane so much he couldn't hit it. So I just gave him a simple drill that I use all the time. I teed a ball up with a 6-iron. And I said, now I want to see you take the club right here and stop. Start your swing from here and hit it. It's a simple drill, and you probably all use this drill. He couldn't get it airborne. I mean, he topped and rolled every ball for like 15 balls in a row. And he said to me, he says, are you going to make a fool out of me in front of all these people watching? And I said, I think the score you just shot, you made a fool out of yourself the first 36 holes. I said, and he said to me later on, he goes, that's when I knew I had to change.
Butch, your father said it, you've said it, impact is the moment. Can you just elaborate a little bit on teaching proper impact, particularly with the recreational golfer?
Well, I think we as instructors a lot of times have to put them in an impact position. I like to take players, it doesn't matter what level they are, I'll have them take their setup, say right here, and I'll come over here and I'll step on the club like this. And I said, now put your body in your impact position that you think you should be in. And most of the time they'll go like this. I said, no. I said, you're not going to get the club face square from here. Put your chest over here on top of the ball, get it over this way, drive this chest through, and then you'll get to this position. Let's use our right hip, right shoulder, depending on how strong or weak their grip is. But you got to give them a feeling of what impact is. I have a film, it's in my phone, that we all use an impact bag. You know how you have people hit the impact bag, bang, bang. I was giving a lesson to a lady last year, and I was dumb enough to have my foot here holding the bag, and she missed the bag, nailed me in the foot. I still have a big scar on my leg there. She said, did that hurt? Ah, yeah, I'm okay. Do it again, and I didn't get out of the way. She hit me in the nuts with the club. I mean, wham! I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Are you fine? I go, yeah, I'm doing just fine. Don't worry about it. Man, I said, this is incoming in the damn teaching bay. It was a good nut shot, too. She nailed me. I never got to hit that hard playing football. Man.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to ask after that.
Well, I hope it never happens to you.
In your
but
mind,
that's impact. And that's the way they can get the feeling of is hitting that impact bag. Boom, boom. If they're right-handed, make them feel this. My dad used to call this Bethlehem steel. He'd say, look, I got Bethlehem steel here. You boys got linguine coming in there. He said, you're not going to be any good with that. But they'll feel that if you make them hit something. Or go to a golf cart and make them push against the back tire so they can feel what they'll be at impact. Because you can't just tell them. You got to be able to make them feel it. And then I love making people hit balls in slow motion. Tee a ball up with a 6 or 7 iron and just have them swing in slow motion. You'd be amazed how good they can hit it by doing that. And what you're telling them is, look, first of all, your swing is too fast and too out of control. I like telling some of these guys have these quick lash golf swings. I said, man, your theory is swing as hard as you can in case you hit it. You haven't hit it yet. So let's slow this damn thing down. I said, I can't help you if it's a blur. I got to be able to see what you're doing. If you get somebody hitting balls with a practice swing, you'd be amazed how good they can actually hit it, but you've given them the feeling of the motion you're trying to get in, because when you're swinging in slow motion, you can put your arms on the right plane and get your club head in the right position, and that will help you.
this might be anticlimactic question after talking about impact, but what in your mind do you think is undertaught, maybe one or two things in golf that should have more attention paid to them?
I think you have to look at a backswing. The only function the backswing has is to get in position to hit it. And I think we get enamored with some of the old things. Keep your head still, don't bend your left arm, the things that we were all taught when we were younger. I mean, if you think about it, your head and neck are attached to your shoulders. If your shoulders turn, your head's going to move back a little. I don't mean you got to sway, but your head's going to move back a little, and then it has to move back forward again as you come down. I think the other thing, a lot of it depends on the student's grip. The stronger the grip is, meaning the more, for a right-handed golfer, you see more knuckles over here, and the right's a little under. That's going to be in a different position at the top than a person that has a weak grip. Because if you look at a Fred Couples, Freddie's got about 3 fingers over here. If he ever got the club like this, he has to get it like this at the top because that's what it's square and that's how he gets it back down. You look at a lot of these modern players who are pretty neutral in the grip. They get the thing pretty shut at the top and then they're strong enough to put the back of the left hand on it. So first thing you do is look at the grip. I have a club that we teach is about that long. The grip goes right here. And once you bring your grip down in front of the club head, and you explain to a person if they have a very weak left hand, if they're right-handed, they can't get the club square because they don't catch up. And you can show them, see, you don't get it there. So if you strengthen it over here this way, and you let this come, they'll see that the toe will then release and help you. And the club is really just this long. Because yes, this is the only contact we have with a golf club is up here, but we're trying to control this. And once you understand when you bring the grip down here and have them with this little club make some swings and you film it, they'll actually see if the club's wide open or if the club's shut coming down. And it's a great little tool for you to really show your student what is going on in his golf swing. You know, a guy's a woman's a 15, 16 handicap, they don't have a clue where the club face is coming down. They don't know if it's open, if it's shut, or anything. But you get the grip right down here and the club's only this long and you just tell them, just make a swing. And then you film it. And you show it to him and say, wow, look at this club face angle. Any of you have that one club that the head is like 20 sizes big? You've ever seen that one that has a built-in grip on it? Big old plastic thing. I was giving Ernie Els a lesson years ago, and he had the club in a really bad position, very open at the top. And he goes, I'm not open at the top. I said, yeah, actually you are. I said, here, swing this club. I mean, the head of this thing is like this big. And he saw it on film. He went, oh my God, it's wide open at the top. I said, yeah. So little tools like this help you, but they also helps the student understand what you're trying to tell them. Because they're not as smart as you are. They don't understand the golf swing as much as you and I do. Some of them think they do. But you know, all these little things help. They make us better at what we do. And they're very simple. It's not difficult. Golf's hard enough. We don't need to make it any harder than it is.
At the elite level, particularly, controlling wedges, being able to hit partial shots, bringing the ball flight down, et cetera, has become a key to success, if you will. Dustin Johnson obviously got better when his wedges got better. Justin Thomas, Rory's working on it, has worked on some with you, still needs some work. How do you approach that part of the game with your players?
Well, you had a very good young man yesterday, Parker McLaughlin. I was here, and he's a good short game coach. And I saw him out at the Titleist Test Center this morning when I was out there, and I was talking to him about that. I think you have to, first of all, control the trajectory of the ball better. The average player we teach are always making a full swing, throwing it up here. If you watch the best wedge players in the world on 100-yard shots, 70-yard shots, 120-yard shots, even to a front pin, the ball goes in there a little bit lower, and one bounces, it stops. And you explain to a person, the higher you hit it up here, the less control you have of it. The more you can bring that ball flight down, the more control you have of how far it goes. The secret to a good player, or those of you who play a lot, when you have it, most of your iron shots, especially short iron shots, are all pin high because you're totally controlling the ball through the air. Well, if it's way up here, you can't control it. It's this big old long flowing follow through. That's what I tried to do with Rory. When he came to me before the Masters last year, I said, look, you're making the same swing for a 120-yard, 130-yard shot that you make with your 5-iron. You got this big old long, I said, follow through. I said, let's get 3/4 here, 3/4 here. Let's bring the ball down a little. In DJ's case, we had a conversation one year. I look at, we get a zillion stats now off the internet. The only one I really pay attention to is proximity to the hole. And I showed him that from 150 yards in, he wasn't bad, he was horrendous. And he played every hole from 150 yards in pretty much. And so I said, look, go get a launch monitor. I want you to make 3 swings with each wedge. 1 to here, 1 to here, 1 to there. and look at the numbers. Look how far they go. So you'll have 12 shots, because he had 4 wedges at the time. You have 12 different distances that you can just change your backswing, but do it with a launch monitor. So he got a launch monitor. So we're playing at Doral. Comes out on the tee. He said, got me a launch monitor, but it's really helping. I'm getting better. I said, good, let's see it. So he tells AJ, go ahead, get it set up. They turn it on, doesn't work. So I said, well, what do you mean? I said, you did charge it last night, didn't you? He goes, oh, you have to charge them? I said, yeah, you got to plug them in, Dustin, and get a little charge in. And he goes, is there a plug out here? I said, DJ, we're on a freaking range. There's no plug out here, pal. So Austin, take it back over there and get it plugged in and come back. But that was how he got to be a good wedge player, and it became one of the strengths of his game. And if you watch him today, well, you can't watch him because he plays in Live, and their TV coverage is terrible. It's unwatchable. But if you watched him before that, he had the longest warm-up of any tour player I've ever taught. He was easily an hour and 30 to hour and 40 minutes. Most of them are 45 minutes, 40 minutes, hour would be a long time. But his first 45 to 50 minutes is nothing but wedge shots. And we'll sit on the range, and I said, what are you going to hit? This is going to be 80 yards. And he'd hit it. He goes, yeah, that was a little hard. It'd be 81, 82. This is how good he got at controlling the distance that he had. And it just comes from practice. It just comes from technique. You know, you got to get, with amateur players, they make the same swing with a 90-yard shot that they're making with their driver, and then they got to slow down coming into it, and they're throwing the club head in there, and it's going all over the place. And you get them in a little 3/4 here, and I like to say, look, here's what I'm trying to do with your wedges. I want you wide on this end, and I want you wide on that end. I said, right now, you're in and narrow, and you're chasey over here. So let's get the club back here. Let's rotate and put the club here. Your engine is going to be your body. Your body's going to pull your arms through. And so I just make them start here. I put it on a tee, just start here and turn and hit it. And they start to get the feeling of it. And that's all you got to do is give them a feeling of it. You know, you talked a little earlier about, you see Tiger on the old shows that we did on the Golf Channel when he talks about that drill where I made him stop at the top and hit it. He hated that drill. He said, I hate doing that. And I used to make him hit hundreds of balls, just starting at the top and starting down. So he could see the drop of the club. He could see the sequencing of the body and the arms. And he said, but I had to do it, but damn, I didn't like doing it. Why did you make me do that so much? I said, I was just torturing you. Just giving you a hard time. I always used to challenge him because he was one, when you teach good players, especially in today's world, you have to figure out a way to let them think it's their idea. So you got to trick them into thinking it's their idea. So we were at La Costa, not far from here, to match play one year. And we were trying to hit shots for high iron shots. We're getting ready for Augusta. We're trying to hit high little fades with a 3-iron. And he couldn't do it. He was hitting pulls. He was hitting big slices. And that range is terrible if you've ever seen it. It's just a bunch of fences and doesn't go very far. Well, at the end down there at about, 225, 230, where the cart came in, there was a gate there. And so I took 5 balls, and I took a $100 bill out of my pocket and put the 5 balls on top of it. I said, I got 100 right here. It says, you can't hit one of these balls through that gate down there with a high fade. First one, choom, right through it. He snatched that 100 up, boy. Put it, best 100 I ever spent. He won the tournament. But so sometimes you just got to trick them into thinking it's their idea, but that's what you do. You know, you got to find a way, especially when you're dealing with good players, you got to find a way to get them not only to buy into what you want them to do, because the ball will tell you if they're doing it right or wrong. But sometimes you got to lead them down a path where they think it's their idea, because that's kind of how they are. You know, they're all a little full of themselves, and they're all really good at what they do. And a lot of them don't like being told what to do. And so you just kind of trick them into thinking it's good. I get asked all the time. Somebody said to me at Augusta, I don't go online and read this stuff, but my son was telling me this. They said, yeah, Dad, there's people online are saying they're watching you on the driving range with your guys, and you're not teaching them anything. You're just making them laugh. You're just telling them jokes. I said, well, we did our work before we got here. They're nervous as hell. I'm just trying to get these guys relaxed. They're like a horse in the starting gate at the Kentucky Derby. They want to go, man. They want to go. So I'm trying to tone them down. I said, if we have to do the work on Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning before they play, I haven't done a very good job. So that shot I was telling you about was very early in the year, but we were working on that shot, four second shots into the par fives at Augusta is what we were doing. A higher, softer shot. And so Tiger won a lot of tournaments hitting the wrong shots for the situation because we would always prepare for a major. Augusta's the easiest one to prepare for because it's always at Augusta National. You know the course. As soon as the Master was over, we'd start working on the U.S. Open. Where is the U.S. Open at? Do we have to change trajectory? Do we have to change shots? That shot I told you about that I told him he couldn't hit it through that door was a shot that he needed to hit at Augusta on the par fives, coming in there with a long iron, and that's how we worked on it.
But you've seen it all. What do you think is the future of instruction?
Well, I still believe less is more. The less you can say, the more your student's going to get out of it. I would say your communication skills are your most important thing, as long with your desire to learn and get better. Because you could have all the knowledge in the world, if you can't communicate it, you're not going to be very successful. Don't overthink it. Don't make it any harder than it is. Don't be afraid, as I told you earlier, think outside the box. Don't be a one-trick pony. Don't treat everybody the same way. Really use your imagination, use your creativity, all the things that you use when you play golf. Use this in your teaching. You'll see a person. You'll be giving a lesson to a person, a man or a woman, doesn't matter. And you'll see them in the worst position you've ever seen it at the top of their swing, and they could get the club square at impact. And you may have it on film, and you go back and look at this film, you're like, how in the world from here to there, how did that happen? And maybe 2 years down the road, you'll get somebody to do the same thing, and a light will go off in your head, and you'll say, yeah, I remember Mr. So-and-so. He did this, and this is how he did it. Well, this helps you be better at what you do. As I said, I've seen every great player in the world play. My favorite Ben Hogan story was I grew up as a kid at Winged Foot caddying. I think I was 16, maybe 15 or 16. My dad was playing with Ben Hogan on the 8th hole on the West Course. It's a long par 4. Well, none of them are long for these guys today, but it was way back in those days. And he hit a ball in the right rough. And he did not have a very good lie, and he was about 200 yards from the green. And he took his 4-wood and he laid it wide open before he gripped it, and he picked it straight up and he hit down on this thing with not a lot of follow through and held the left hand through there. And this ball jumped out of this bad lie with a big fade and went over here, came down about 15 yards short of the green, rolled up to about 15 feet. I'm thinking to myself, how the heck did he do that? So what I would do if Dad was playing with these great players, he would teach in the morning, have lunch, play in the afternoon, teach at night. So he would go back, and at this particular time he was given a few lessons at night. I'd take my clubs and I went out that very spot and I found that divot. And I threw about 6 balls down there, and I got my 4-wood, and I said, well, he did this and he did that. How did he do that? And I'm going to try and finally I got where I could do it. Now, the difference between the woods in those days and modern day times, in those days, yes, there's legality on grooves and an iron, but there was none on woods. And I mean to tell you, you can't believe how deep these grooves were on Ben Hogan's clubs and how wide they were. I mean, it looked like a washboard in the old days that you wash clothes on. So that ball could squeeze on there and come out of there. But I learned a lot by watching those great players. And then I'd go try and do it. You know, I'd try and imitation, because imitation is a great thing. When you're teaching, you know, we use Tiger a lot as an example if a guy's a good player, because they love to see their picture next to Tiger. If it's a lefty, we just flip it over, and they go, oh, did he play left-handed? No, you idiot, I'm just flipping it in the machine. He doesn't play left-handed. But I can relate it to you this way. But find, if you've got swings of a lot of good players, find someone of that student's stature and height and stuff. And I've taught everybody in the world that's, you know, a good player of different heights, so we have a whole bunch of stuff to choose from that we can show people. Now, I think in the 10 years I was with Tiger, everybody came to take a lesson and said, I want to swing like Tiger. I said, well, no kidding, so do I. But if we don't climb in his body, that's not going to happen. But you can learn from good players. You can learn a certain part of a swing that a guy does that your guy you're teaching doesn't do. And by showing the film of it and then making them do it in slow motion, they'll get the feeling of it. And golf is hard, but it's not as hard as we make it.
How many asked you to make them swing like Ben?
Boy, you couldn't, unless you had that body rotation that was that fast, coming from that flat a position. I love watching Ben Hogan swing. It's just, I was watching a thing last night. I flew down last night from Vegas, and I have a place up the road in San Clemente condo, and I stayed in my condo last night. About 11 o'clock at night, I was going to bed, and I found this video of a Hogan swing, and I was just watching it. I said, God damn, that was beautiful.
everything that counts.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. That's true in life. It's what you learn after you think you know it all to be the most important things you'll learn in teaching, especially in life too. Never think that you know it all. Look, as I said, I'm 81 years old. I've been a golf pro 59 years. I'm still learning. I still want to get better at what I want to do. Another thing I will tell you, work on your own games. Work on your own games. In your spare time, work on your own games. I'm still trying to get better. I mean, I can't hit the ball. I'm at 85 mile an hour club speed I have. I'm not getting it out there very far, but I'm trying to get the best out of my game, and it's gotten a lot easier to shoot my age at 81 than it was when I did it the first time at 66. That's for damn sure. Well, work on your own games too, because this helps you. Because if you can't do it, how the heck do you expect some 18 handicap to do it? So that helps you become even better at teaching because you're teaching yourself.
Sean, do we have time for a few Q&As?
I'll be here. I don't have a flight till 7, so I'll be here as long as you want.
Robert.
Well, I got taught by Chris Clark. I don't know if you remember Chris, one of your dad's former assistants on bunker play. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people probably don't know, are probably not familiar with how your father worked the flange of the wedge through the bunker. It'd probably be pretty helpful for them to learn.
Sure. Dad was a great believer that the bunker shot, a lot of people teach it left-handed. He taught it all right-handed. He felt the right hand was your engine. His theory is pretty simple. Most people take the club and open it. Well, that's no chance because it's going to return here. So he'd make you open it in your right hand, get your left hand more on top, as weak as it could get, and then never let the club get shut. And then that way you could really spank the sand with your right hand, not so much coming across, but having the feeling of really slapping the sand with your right hand and throwing the sand and the ball out. We were taught as kids, we used to have to spend hours hitting bunker shots with one hand, just one-handed shots. You'd be amazed how good you can hit it by doing it this way too. You just sit there and you just spank the sand and follow through, because the follow through is what throws the ball out. The old school of opening wide open and cutting across, well, the ball comes out with a spin like this. We teach it not completely square, but a little open, ball very forward, because the bottom of our arc wants to come down here, not here. If you get someone who's got a shaft lean, they got no chance. They're not getting out of a steep bunker. If the ball's too far back, because they're going to dig. And this way you can use the bounce more. And with one hand you feel it. It's the same with pitching. You get people pitching off of tight lies, and they get a shaft lean, they're going to stick the club in the ground this way. But if you show them how to hit it one-handed, they'll just use that bounce every time. Right here with a little body motion turning and just letting this thing slide right under the ball. But for us, we were taught it was all right-handed shot. A lot of people think it's left-handed. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's how we were taught.
Hey, Butch, over here. A question about Tiger, him learning how to hit the stinger, and specifically with the driver, and what you guys had to do for him to learn how to do that, and why you guys did that.
Well, we did it with long irons to start with, to take the ball out of the sky, getting ready for one of the British Opens. Because over there you got to put the ball on the ground and get it out of the sky. So I showed him how to have the feeling of using right hip, right shoulder coming through a little higher and trying to trap everything this way. Feel like he trapped it and drove it out there like, I won't hit you, you don't have to worry. I wish I had that good a release, but I don't. And just the feeling of really feeling like your chest is more in front of the ball, your head's more in front of the ball versus being behind it and throwing it up, and using the right hip, right shoulder, and really drive that through there. Get that feeling of just chasing it down the line. And then we do with a driver, just tee it a little lower. And that same feeling. When he first brought that out, one year it was at Kapalua, and no one had seen it before. And now, because of his speed, he could take it with a driver and keep it in the air for 270 at that low thing, or 280, and then it would get on the ground and roll. But that was how we did it. That was the sequencing of how we tried to get him to get that club face in there with that shaft lean in there and the body rotation syncing up.
Is that why he also started pumping iron? And I heard a story where he had to work out, get stronger to be able to do it with the driver.
Well, he had to get stronger, but no, he was a fanatic in the gym. Every injury he's had has come in the gym. he likes to tell you they were golf related. They all came in the gym from lifting too much weights. He was a fan. Even when he was at Stanford, he'd get in the gym with the football players, and he wanted to lift more than they did. I hated it. I used to tell him, man, you're going to get hurt. Quit lifting. You're strong. Let's get your core needs to be strong. Your core in golf is so important for the rotation of your body. If you don't have a strong core, you're going to have a hard time sequencing the arm movement and your body, making everything the same coming down. But he was a fanatic in the gym. He loved it. He'd always give you the pump the things up. He had legs about looked like this club right here. About how skinny they were. Boy, I used to bust his balls big time on that too. I said, yeah, you're big up here. What do you got to do? I mean, what is this here? What are these things? Oh, my God. You a distance runner or what the hell are you? Yes, sir.
Butch, I mentored under a guy named Carl Welty, and
One of the all-time best.
And many things he loved to study, but he loved to study what would happen if a player switched coaches, and then where their game would go and what kind of the progress or the ups and downs it. So maybe you could kind of tell a little bit about your history with Ricky. You guys worked together, you guys stopped, he may have lost his way, I don't know the facts about it, and then you started working with him again. So, and it seems like he's kind of made his way back.
Yeah, I was with him Saturday and Sunday. Carl Welty had probably, and Jim McLean, a good friend of mine who loved Carl. Carl probably had the best video of all the best players because they would all play La Costa, and he'd send his whole crew out there, and they're filming every one of them on every hole. And he had great filming, so you know that. But when Ricky and I split, I quit traveling the tour in 2019. I was just worn out. I was sick of airplanes, sick of restaurants, sick of hotel rooms. I mean, I was getting older. I've been chasing a tour for 35, 40 years, and it was time for me just to go. I said, guys, I'll still work with you, but you're just going to have to come see me. I'll go to a few majors every now and then, but that's about it. And a lot of them wanted someone with them at all times. Well, I'm not a hand holder. That's not my MO. I'm not here to hold your hand. My job is to try and make you better. And Ricky and I had a great run. And then when I left, he went a different route, and the swing, if you remember, got back to very flat again. The driver shaft was actually below the right shoulder. And the first thing I did when he came, I can't tell you, and I've told Ricky this, that when he called me a couple of years ago and wanted to come back, girl Maya, I've got film in my phone. He was holding her in his arm in this hand, and he had a club. He said, okay, Maya, let's hit this. And she goes, I want to hit it over there. No, we got to hit it this way. I want to hit it over there, Daddy. No, we got to hit, no, we're going this way. And he'd go like this, and he'd turn, and she'd go, oh yeah, that was a good one. Then she'd run and catch the ball. He's a wonderful guy. He took 3 months off because he wasn't in the FedEx Cup. They had another baby. It's the longest break he's ever had in his whole career, and it did wonders for him. It made him appreciate the game more. He came back out at Sanderson's Farms. Tournament shot 17 under, hadn't played in 3 months, which proved to him the work that we had been doing in that downtime leading up to that was the right thing, and he's back on track. We had 2 great sessions Saturday and Sunday, just doing driver testing and stuff. He could win again soon. He's only got 2 tournaments left. He's got our tournament in Vegas this week, and then the Zozo in Japan next week. But he's going to have a hell of a year next year, because he's back. And the game needs him to be back. I admire him on the live end of it, because he was offered, when he was really down, a bunch of money to go play and live, and he didn't take it. And I've asked him that, why didn't you take it? He said, I didn't think I deserved it. I didn't deserve to get paid like that. A lot of guys didn't think that way. And I don't fault the guys that went to live. Somebody tell me I'm going to give you $100 million. Yeah, do I have to kiss your ass now, or do you after you get the money, or what? I'm coming for $100 grand. Are you kidding me? and there's a couple good stories along there. Look at the John Rahm story, for example. He got around 300 to 300 million. And people say, why do you think he would have gone? He was the number 2 player in the world. And I said, well, I know they've been after him for a long time, and they kept building the money up, and finally got to a point with 2 young kids and, you know, 300 million. Hell yeah. But I think he thought because he was the second best player in the world, he could go and 1 year later, they'd all be back together again and he'd get to keep the cash. And that hasn't worked out that way. And Brooks is another one. Brooks had bad knees and he felt his career could have been over with. And that's why he went over to live and took the money and found out he had a bad trainer and got a new trainer and now his knees are fine and he wished he had never gone over there. But people, as a coach, you're never going to be with the same guy your whole life. Pretty much it's very unusual for that to happen. Maybe someone thinks they've learned everything they can learn from you, and I said that to you earlier. And then they go on, and all you can do is give them the best you can give them. And understand, as I said earlier, I took 5 people to number 1 in the world, and they all ended up firing me. So it's just part of the business, because they want to go on, and maybe they think the message has gotten stale. I'm of the belief if it's not broken, we don't need to fix it. Just because you want to try something different. No, I don't think that's right. You're playing the best you can play right now the way you're going. Why do you want to change that? But golfers are fickle. You know, they always feel they can get better and learn something else from maybe one of their buddies is playing good and they like what their coach is saying and they'll go to him. But I love having Ricky back. He's the best. We had the best time the last 2 days on Saturday and Sunday. We had so much fun with the kids out there and just, it was the good days. Yes? My pleasure.
You know, I've met you before at a HAGA. I was playing as a junior golfer, and you've inspired me throughout my career, even playing-wise and stuff like that.
You're very kind. Thank you.
I currently play on tour, and I'm also one of the level 1 associate program in the PGA now. And so there's actually one thing that you said that really resonated with me, which is I kept myself from being a good player. Now, as we know that mental game, and as you mentioned, with Tiger's mentality, and you said Greg Norman as well, they have different mentalities. And so my question to you is there a good sports psychology book that you go to as your number 1 book to go to, or is there just kind of a, I don't know, that is, yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for your nice comments. No, I kind of wing it. I kind of know my players, and I know what I think it takes them. I'll tell you an interesting story. When Tiger won his 3rd amateur at Pumpkin Ridge, he was playing a young man, Steve Scott, was at the time playing the University of Georgia, at Florida. And if you remember, he was 5 down at the end of the first 18 holes, and nobody had ever won 3 amateurs in a row, not even Nicklaus or Bobby Jones. And it was his posture. He was too far from the ball. He was too bent over, which means he had to come up to hit it. And we fixed it in 5 minutes. We didn't even go to lunch. He said, I can't believe I'm playing so bad. I said, let's go to the tee. I said, I got you. And we fixed it in 5 minutes. So if you remember, Steve had his girlfriend who was caddying for him, who's now his wife. And Steve's a fine golf pro now. And she's a great young lady. But it was really irritating me watching that in the morning. That every time he would make a putt, she was smiling and giving him a kiss. And it was actually pissing me off, if you want to know the honest to God truth. And so I'm trying to think my best Bob Rotella moment, because I've always had a knack, and I can't tell you how I do it. I always have a knack of sending my players to the first tee in a great frame of mind, even if they were hitting it bad on the range. I've got a way of kind of getting inside their head. And so I'm trying to think, what the hell can I tell Tiger? So I said to Tiger, I said, hey, Tig, I said, I don't know if you noticed it this morning, but I'm sick and tired of this guy. Every time he makes his putt, his girlfriend's kissing him and big smile, and she's over there smiling at you. And I said, will you beat this guy and wipe the smile off that damn girl's face? That was my, I didn't have to go to school to learn that. I actually cleaned it up a little too, by the way. And so if you remember the match, he birdies the 16th hole and he's 1 down, and he holds that long putt on 17, which is the 35th hole, run across the green with a big fist pump. Well, the 18th tee is down here at Pumpkin Ridge, and the 17th green is here. And I'm walking down the hill just talking to someone, and unbeknownst to me, Tiger walks behind me and he slaps me on the ass. He goes, she ain't smiling now, is she, Butchie? And I'm like, yeah. So I don't know a lot of times on what I'll tell someone, but I think you know the person that you're teaching, and you kind of know their mentality, and you know that. And I was very hard on myself. I was such a perfectionist that if I hit a bad shot, I thought it was the end of the world. And I was very temperamental, and I really couldn't get out of my own way. Now, that's what's made me better at my job, because I am such a professional, and I do expect everything to be that I do the best I can be. But you got to learn your student and who they are, and know what buttons you can push. Know if there's a little something you can give them a little prod. Sometimes it's not nice. Sometimes it is nice. But as I said to you earlier, you just got to know when to kick them in the butt. You got to know when to give them a hug. You got to know when to back off. It's a touchy situation. You can read all of Bob Rotella's books and Harvey Pinnock's book. It's really just common sense when you read this stuff, is what it is. I mean, I don't know, and I look at all, and I'm not a great believer in sports psychologists for golfers. It's just something I've never understood. I get it. If you've got a lot of mental problems, I think that helps. But I don't think you need anybody to tell you to try as hard as you can on every shot. I mean, really? No kidding. Isn't that my job? And the one I don't get is don't look at a scoreboard. What? You're 2 behind with 4 to play? You don't want to know that? Can you imagine a basketball coach calling timeout and he doesn't know the score with 2 minutes left in the game? Come on. Tiger Woods was a scoreboard watcher, man. He wanted to know where he was at all times. He wanted to know, if I got to birdie the last 5 holes, I'm going to try and birdie the last 5 holes because I want to win. And so you've got to understand that about the people you're teaching. And you'll learn which buttons to push and when to push them. And they'll all be different. And like I said, just because it worked for someone, it may not work for the other one. But that one worked pretty good, actually. That was pretty good. I was actually very proud of myself on that one. Thank you. And thank you for your nice comments.
Hey, Butch. Thanks for being here. I'm just tacking on to a question for the stinger motion that you were talking about teaching. With the new technology out, would you teach that the same way? Just because with Tiger always talking about, hey, the ball was spinnier before when he was using a professional 90 versus now where the ball spin less, would you teach that stinger the same way?
It's easy to hit a little fade. It's not as easy to hit a little baby draw anymore because the ball's gone off the face so much. So you have to change your approach depending on the player you're working with, the path of the club coming in, where he comes from, how he exits. What do I need to do to make this position a little better, the club face a little too shut coming out? What do we need to change that? And nowadays, when guys change equipment, it's a big thing. I mean, because you're going from a different ball to a different type of club, a different manufacturer. I tell all the young ones that I teach that don't sign a contract with anybody when you come out of college. You just use whatever you've used in the past that made you good to get to the tour. You know, they think that somebody's going to give them $100,000 that, man, I got to go play this equipment. That's one shot at one time, $100,000 coming down the stretch, bud. So use your equipment, and then you'll learn from moving around with different pros and trying different stuff. But don't just because someone's going to pay you, go to that. But you have to change with it. As technology changes, and boy, in the last 10 to 12 years, it's really changed. It's changed a lot. And you'll change your things that you think are important in the way you teach because of that. And I don't get this dialing the ball back BS. I mean, who the hell wants to use a ball that doesn't go as far? Can you tell me any member at your club that you're going to tell me, we're going to say these balls, they're not going to go as far as the one? No. Can I get a gross of those from last year? I don't think that's going to go. I think the tour is going to say, no, we're not doing it. I really do. If you want to change something, and manufacturers don't like this, change the driver. Change the size of the head. How fast the ball comes off the club face, the length of the shaft. You could change that and maybe show it, but you don't have to do any of that. It is what it is. This is where we are. My good friend Jose Maria Olazabal had the greatest saying in the world. You know that golf's the only sport, professional sport, that plays under amateur rules? NFL football is not even the same size as the college football. The three-point line is different in basketball. Baseball, they're using aluminum bats in college. We're the only sport in the world playing under amateur rules. I'm surprised the tour hasn't made their own rules. Jose Maria had the best idea. He said, look, Bush, I tell you something, Bush. He said, you don't need 14 clubs. We go from 14 to 9 clubs. We find out who can play. Now, that's brilliant. And if you got a putter, now you got 8 clubs. Then you got to hit shots, and that's what he meant. Then you have to hit the quality of the golf shots that's required to play. Where now in the tour, you know, in the tour state, if everything's going to stay the same, just narrow the fairways. Make the fairways hard and fast, 25 yards wide with a 4-inch rough, and the green's hard. Make a premium on putting the ball in the fairway. Nowadays, these guys hit at 340, 350. They don't care if it's in the rough. They're only hitting a wedge shot to the green. But if you make them put the ball in the fairway, the argument would be, well, then they won't hit driver every hole. Well, where the hell does it say you have to hit driver every hole? Scorecard's only got a box for a number. That's all it cares about is the number. But to go to your point, yes, you have to change the way you look at stuff. You have to go along with technology and get better at your presentation with the newer stuff than we had before. If you took a modern day player, you took our longest hitters today, and you put them in a persimmon driver and a softball, they would spin it off the world. There's no way they could swing that hard. Now, my guys like to use a persimmon, we have a bunch of persimmon drivers. A persimmon driver, unfortunately, we don't have softer balls, but they like to feel the ball in the club face a little longer. Tiger used to like to use a persimmon driver building up to Augusta because he could feel like he could hit a little better draw with it off some of the off the tees and stuff. But we've got to adapt as equipment adapts. Anyone else? Okay, I see. I'm sorry. What would I what? Say Rory. Well, Roy came to me a couple weeks before the Masters this year, and I taught Roy before. I'll back up a little on the Roy story. Years ago, when Dickie was still alive, gosh, he's been gone now for 18 years. My God, it's been that long. The 4 of us went over to Ireland and Scotland, and we had 30 of the best juniors, 15 girls, 15 boys. We worked with them for four days. Then we went to Ireland, and we did the same thing in Ireland. And we had Rory in our class, and he was about 15. And I had the honor of playing, so I've known Rory a long time. I played with him that afternoon, and I remember coming back. We were all talking about that night around the bar. So how'd your kids play? I said, man, I played with this kid, Rory McIlroy or whatever his name was. This kid was really good. He was 15. He was bombing it. He could hit shots. He was great. So I've known Rory a long time. So Rory and I have a great friendship. So when he came to me, it was more, if you remember the Players' Championship and at Bay Hill, he was missing greens with wedges and 9-irons. And most of them were hooks because he was making a big long swing, and then he had the decel come into it, and he had the big follow through. He was never chopping off his follow through. If you watch him now, it's more 3/4, more under control, take the ball out of the air, control the distance of it. So that was what we worked on. I didn't work on anything on his driver swing or any of his full swings. We worked mainly from 150 yards in, hitting shots and controlling the flight of the ball, controlling the shape to make it go both ways, but making sure it goes through the air the way you wanted it to. And it was just a matter of getting away from the long flowing follow through on a 120-yard shot. I mean, you got wasted energy. And if you're making this, you got to slow down here, and that's not good. So I wanted him to always be able to accelerate through the ball, but control the sequencing of the arms and the body together, and that was what we worked on. And he's done a better job of it. Yes.
Hey, Butch. Thanks for being here. You mentioned the video with you and Tiger on Golf Channel where you had him pause at the top, and I think he called it the Olay swing.
Yeah, well, trying to get out of the Olay swing,
right,
where the body got around so fast.
So your fix to that, was that more like, because you mentioned like him and Hogan had really fast hips. I think that can be a good thing, but was your fix more like delaying the body rotation on the way down, or?
No, it was more of trying to sync everything up together. If you think of a golf swing, if you think of a good player, when a good player is just about to the top of the golf swing, his lower body is moving forward. My dad used to say you want to feel like you've got a little bump of the left hip, which is the start of the weight transfer. He used to make us open a door in the house, and the door would be right here, and he'd say, make a backswing, now close the door with your lower body. And meaning he didn't want it to go this way. He wanted you to get where you boom, and then you went around. So the deal with that drill was because Tiger was getting the club stuck behind him when he was younger, and he'd be here so much because his hips were so fast. So we found a way by having him start up here and going up here and just rocking back for momentum and feeling the arms and club head and hands work with the body together to sequence it together. And that was the way he got where he could feel it. I've done that drill with Freddie Couples too. Freddie, for those of you who know Freddie, it's just the way he talks is charming. Oh, wow. Wow, Butchie, I like this drill. You know, when I stop up here, I don't think of anything, but I just hit it. I think I'm going to play that way tomorrow. I said, no, Fred, you'll set golf back 100 years. You start stopping at the top. You know, I don't even have to make a backswing, but I can just go like this. And I could, and he could drive it doing that. And that's how Freddie talks. It's just a way of getting a player to feel what you want them to feel. Yes. Okay.
Is this on?
I'm fine. Don't worry about me.
So you mentioned earlier about recording people's practice swings. And,
over here. I'm sorry, I got lights in my
and then just so that they can see themselves actually do it. But then we were actually sitting around at my facility talking about why people can't do it over the ball, and I'm just curious as to what your take is.
Well, when there's no ball there, there's no anticipation of hitting it. I don't know what the hell happens to all of us when we put the ball there, because all of a sudden the ball's there and everything changes. So when you film them, especially if you film them in slow motion and they see it, and they can actually physically do what you're trying to make them do. That's the beauty of swinging in slow motion. And then bring them up side by side with their actual swing, and you'll see the difference in where they go and the speed of the swing and everything. And it's a way of getting your student to feel what you want them to do, and they can actually feel it. If you're trying to, like, say you got, as most people, you know, they get here and they come over the top and the chicken wing is working out this way, and you have them close off a little and just say, just swing your arms past your body. Just let your arms just naturally swing past your body. Get the feeling of your arms passing your body, and everything starts to sync up. And always have them hit it off a tee when they're doing that, because it's easier for them to make contact with it with, say, a 6 or 7 iron or something like that. The beauty of that is they'll be amazed how far they hit it with what they think is a slow motion swing, because it's really not that slow. It's just everything is together. I mean, we are so enamored of watching Ernie Els and Freddie hit balls. It's unbelievable. You see, look how slow he's swinging. That club head isn't going slow. It's just the motion is so together at all times. But I think that's the best way of getting someone to feel what they're trying to do. You know what well, let me ask you guys a question. What's the number one teaching aid you use in your lessons? Anybody? Impact bag, okay. Anyone else? A what? Range basket. Range basket, okay. A what? Lyman sticks, okay. Anyone else? You know what it is? A club box. A golf club box. We got millions of them lying around in your storeroom. You get a guy coming over the top, put the box on the ground. If he's standing there, you put the box on the ground. He's swinging this way a little to the inside, and you just say, now make some practice swings and don't hit the box. And the guy will say, well, hell, I don't care. Just don't hit the box. And you film it. And the guy's just spent 20 minutes coming this way, and all of a sudden it's from the inside, and he goes, oh, I didn't hit the box. No, do it again. Drops down from the inside, and he goes, why am I not hitting the box? I said, I don't know, you tell me, you're the one swinging it. I never told the guy once how not to hit the box, but yet it's in their eye line, and they see it. And it's a freaking club box. We got them laying around everywhere. Well, I must have 15 of them in my base. We tape them with white tape, and they beat the crap out of them. But it's amazing by just seeing with their own eyes. And you can get guys, I mean, we've had them that a downswing was this way. And they would have missed the box on the other side, to be honest with you. And as soon as you put it there, it's like this. And I had a guy ask me, he said, well, how did you ever learn that? That's pretty good. I said, well, I learned it the hard way. I said, at Wingfoot, we had iron rakes. And I was coming over the top of it. I was about 16. My dad got this iron rake, and he stuck it to the ground at an angle of about like this. He said, all right, Butchie boy, here's a choice. You better miss the rake or you're breaking your wrist. And man, I was firing that baby from so far from the inside. But they can do it. They can actually do it, and don't tell them how to do it. They'll say, how do you want me to miss the box? I don't care, just miss it. But do it in slow motion, and they'll miss it every time.
And then you put a ball there on a tee, and boom, they hit the prettiest little draw out of the middle of the club, and they go, wow. And I'll go, wow, yeah, you're damn right, wow. Look at that, you did it. Let me show it to you on film. Cheapest teaching aid ever made, club box. Any other questions?
Hey, Butch. You've got such a great attitude about some of your players leaving. What's been one of the hardest lessons that you've had to learn under that set of circumstances?
Probably when I was younger, I would take it personally that I did something wrong, that I'm very hard on myself. When I've had a guy that's a really good player and he has a chance to win and he doesn't win, I mean, I beat myself up. Did I miss something this morning on the range? Did I not see something that I should have seen? And it's just part of the business. You know, you get, maybe someone thinks they've learned everything they can learn from you, or they think the message is stale. My message is always the same with each guy. If it's not broken, we're not going to fix it. We don't need to change it because you got a friend of yours that swings like that. And so I believe in anything that works. I don't care if it's the worst looking backswing you've ever seen. If you can get it square at impact and hit it on line, I'm all for it. And so, I mean, that's just all part of it. You know, it's because players are going to come and go. I'm still perfectly friendly with everyone that I've ever taught that left me. They're all still good friends of mine because all I want them to do is play the best they can play. If they can do it with me, that's fine. If they can do it better with someone else, I've told different players, you need to go hear someone else give you the message because maybe this message is getting, and they'll say, you don't mind if I go? And I said, no, go listen to what someone has to say. You'll learn. And it's all about learning. It's all we want to do for our players is we want them to play better. And however they can play better, that's what I care about. I care about my players. They're like my family. Yeah, I don't like it when they leave because I think I didn't do something right when I was younger. But as I got older, it's just part of the business. It just is what it is. And people say to me all the time, they say, how do you pick your students, Mr. Harmon? I said, I've never picked a student. I said, people have called me, and if I think I can help them, or if I have the time, I'm happy to spend the time with them, or if I like the guy. If I don't like the guy at my age now, I'm not going to spend any time with him. They said, has there ever been anybody you wouldn't teach? I said, yeah, there's been a few. And they said, well, would you tell us their name? I said, no, but his initials were Patrick Reed. No, thank you. Okay. He was an amateur champion and a good player, and he had gotten lost. He really had lost his confidence, and he came to me, and of all the players I've ever had, this one bothers me the most because I didn't get him back to where he should have been, and I gave it my best effort, and everybody he went to, the poor guy he had got full swing yips, and as a professional with that, it's not easy to get out of, and that hurt me as much as it hurt him because I pride myself on being really good at what I do, and I have a great track record that proves that. And I love my students. They're like my family, and I spend my whole heart and soul in everything I do for them. And that one hurt me because I didn't make it happen. But unfortunately, he was at that point in time where I don't think anything was going to help him, and it was too bad because he was a very good player. Anyone else?
Test. I think we need to conclude. Randy Chang wants to remind everybody next year, October 6th, 7th, we're going to be at Pechanga for next year's conference. And I think we all owe a huge, Bill, you want to say something?
Yeah, I've got to close if we're ready to close.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon.
So two things. Number one, Butch did a video years ago called How to Throw a Club. You have to go find that. But Butch, you've had a remarkable life and an admirable career. You've said that giving a golf lesson is a privilege, which is one of the most important things I think that we could take out of today. But it's been a privilege for us to get many, many lessons from you today. It's been an honor for me to be up here on stage with you. I can't thank you enough on behalf of the Southern California PGA for agreeing to come and spend some time with us. Safe travels, our friend, and best to you going forward.
In closing for me, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. What you've shown, what your section has done, you've had, what, 2 or 3 days now? Is it 3 days? 2 days of great instruction. And whether you agreed with everything you learned or everything you didn't learn or you didn't agree with me or something, it doesn't matter. You learn. And to have this ability and for your section to put this on, and I love this book that they had here that they gave me of the history of this section and stuff. You people should thank the people in the Southern California PGA section for creating this type of situation, for taking a place like this and allowing everybody to come in and asking people like myself. I always tried to do one seminar a year for many years, and then COVID hit and I haven't done any. This is my first one coming back, and when they called me, I couldn't say yes fast enough. Because I love doing this. I love sharing information with you, and I like hearing what you have to say because I learn from you. I don't know it all, believe me, and I will tell you this, I have invented nothing. Nothing that I teach I've invented. I may have invented how to deliver the message. I've learned from watching, I've learned from listening, and I've learned from watching the best players and the best teachers teach. And please continue to do that, and if you will be the best you can be. I never set out in my life feeling I would ever get to this position. But all I wanted to be was the best I could be. And the best I could be meant I had to keep learning. I had to never stop learning. I'll say it again. I've said it 3 times today. Think outside the box. Don't be a follower. Be an individual. Whatever is important to you in the golf swing, that's who you are. But keep learning. I'm 81 years old. I'm still trying to learn. I like talking to people. People call me all the time, instructors, when I'm doing golf schools, can we come watch you? I said, sure, you can come watch. Sometimes we have 3 or 4 pros in there watching us teach golf schools. I said, now I don't expect you to jump in and help, but you can stand there and you can listen to it. And at the end of the session, you can ask me any questions you want, because that's how I learned. I learned by listening to the guys that were really good of my era when I grew up. Why were they good? Why was this guy better than that guy? And a lot of it is the delivery. It's how you deliver the message. That's the most important part. Knowledge is beautiful, but without being able to deliver the message, the knowledge doesn't do any good. So get good at your communication skills. Learn how to give clinics, your ladies' clinics, your junior clinics. Have somebody, and I'll give you a little piece of advice. Have one of your assistants, or if you're an assistant, have one of your other. If you're doing a ladies' clinic, for example, or you're doing a clinic at a member guest, have somebody film you doing the clinic and then go back and watch it and critique yourself. You go, I can't believe I said that. That was so stupid that I would say something like that. But this is how we learn, because we're harder on ourselves than anybody else is going to be. Well, maybe one of my ex-wives is harder on me, but I'm not going to go into that. But this is how you learn. This is how you get better at what you do. I continue to try and get better. I thank all of you for taking time out from your day to come and listen to us today. It's an honor for me to be here, and thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. All right.